Hey, NFL and sports fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen. And is that Zozo behind you there?
Yeah, it's Zozo back there. Mm-hmm.
Tom Pollen and Zozo. Chris Smitherman behind the scenes. Zozo literally behind the scenes. Although not
Yes.
behind the scenes, in front of the camera, behind the camera guy.
No,
And,
she's looking out the window.
and I'm Dave Holcomb. Today should be a great show, as I always say, but I loved what tomorrow will be. You know, it's like Christmas Day for sports fans. Championship Sunday is one of the best days of the year. Definitely one of the best days of the sports calendar. So I'm really excited for today's show. I'm really excited for tomorrow. We'll talk a lot about the two matchups, which should be really great matchups.
Yeah.
Bengals going back to Arrowhead in Kansas City. There have been some talk between the two teams this week, and this is a growing rivalry in the AFC. We thought it was going to be Burrow and Allen being that rivalry, and not Mahomes and Allen being that rivalry, and not that it isn't, but Burrow is right up there with those two quarterbacks, and the Bengals are with those two teams. So we'll talk about that and the AFC Championship, and of course the NFC is the top two seeds, basically the best two teams in the NFC all year long.
Well, I was about to say, other than the Bills, do any of these teams surprise you that they're in the position they're in?
No.
Right.
No, and that's what should make it great football is, it's great to have some upsets and some, unexpected victories from some teams in the playoffs, but we didn't necessarily get that this year. And what that's going to do is set up some great matchups for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So we're going to spend most of today on Championship Sunday, but to start off, let's talk about the big Falcons news that happened in the last 24 hours. They hired a new defensive coordinator from the New Orleans Saints, Ryan Nielsen, defensive line coach from the Saints previously, and kind of one for two. Not one for two. You're getting two parts to like about this is what I'm trying to say. You're getting I think a good defensive coordinator, up and coming coach as your DC next year for the Falcons, and you're taking away a good coach from a rival.
Yeah, two pluses and one. So and the thing is, he's done a heck of a job with that defensive line in New Orleans. So, and boy, if there's anything that the Falcons need, it's help on the defensive line. So, it's got to be a positive for the Falcons. We're looking forward to it.
Millie's trying to chime in. I don't know if you can hear her, but she agrees that pass rush is what the Falcons need to address this offseason. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of our followers who don't always tune in right at the top of the show. If you're filtering in a little bit later, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say about this hire. I don't think it was the first choice for the Falcons, and that's something we can discuss. But I still think he's a good candidate. I don't want to say he's like a secondary, even if he wasn't the first choice or even the second choice. I don't think he's a bad choice. So that's another thing we can discuss. I do want to get our sponsor here at the top of the show. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in the App Store. And when you do, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. And you know what? Today is a great day to get started with Prize Picks. We'll have some entries for you to use in the championship games tomorrow. And, if you don't have enough excitement watching the championship games, just from a football perspective, you'll have maybe some money on the line with some of the entries that we recommend and some of the ones that you want to use.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of good ones on the site today. So it's going to be fun to review a lot of those and see what the good ones are, where we can what we can put you onto and get some money out of.
So we'll have those picks a little bit later on. Going back to, the Ryan Nielsen, and I think Falcoholic had some good stories on the hire. And then if you want to Google, Falcons defensive coordinator candidates, they had a good story. I think it came out Tuesday or Wednesday about who they were all who they've interviewed, who they are considering reportedly for the defensive coordinator spot. And, some of them, they've got some big names on the list. Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, even Al Holcomb. There was some chatter after Frank Reich got hired in Carolina that Steve Wilkes maybe was a candidate for defensive coordinator for the Falcons. And that would be, again, getting a coach from a division rival there, who did well as a head coach for the interim basis for the Panthers. But you they went with the unknown, more of an unknown in Ryan Nielsen. And I don't think that was by choice. I think Brian Flores might be holding out for the Arizona Cardinals job. Have you heard anything about Vic Fangio, where he might land?
No, I haven't heard a thing about where he might land. I don't think anything's come out of Fangio's camp. It's mostly a lot of people speculating about where Fangio would be a good fit. And boy, if you want a good fit, if you want a top-notch defensive coach, Vic Fangio is it. We had him here in Chicago for 3 seasons, and it's just amazing what he can do with a defense. So, but, the Falcons went the way they did. Do you think this is a matter of Smith not wanting to be overshadowed by his defensive coordinator? That he took maybe a more obscure name, not a lesser coach, but a more obscure name?
I don't think so necessarily. I think it's more of Brian Flores maybe didn't want the job in Atlanta. I haven't read a whole lot about Vic Fangio either, so I'm not sure where he might be landing. He didn't coach in the NFL this past year, correct?
No.
So, I mean, he might be waiting for just the perfect opportunity to get back into coaching. And maybe quite simply, he didn't view this as that opportunity. And Flores, of course, you're going to hold out for a head coaching job if you think you can get that.
Yes.
And Flores looks like he might get that this year. So that's not surprising that Flores would back out or not want the DC job in Atlanta. But I guess my point overall is just the Falcons are not a destination yet, and not a place that is at the very top of coaches' lists of places they want to go. And there could be a few reasons for that. It could be, there isn't the tradition of other places that we've talked about that in the past. They're not a winning club yet. And the defense has some obvious flaws still. It's not rebuilding necessarily, but there are holes, particularly on the offensive line, that need to be addressed. And it's not, if you're a defensive line coach, or if you're Brian Flores and you're looking at, okay, I need to land in a defensive coordinator. If I can't get a head coaching job, I need to land in a defensive coordinator position that catapults me to a head coaching job. Is Atlanta really that right now? I would probably say
not at the moment. No.
Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that I don't think it had anything to do with Smith, to answer your question, but I'm not surprised that some of these top candidates have what they consider to be better offers.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that's the case, but you're trying to build a culture, and I see the fact that, Flores wants to be a head coach. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get the opportunity. In Arizona, he might, but this lawsuit that he has against the NFL is not going to be a work in his favor, even though I support the lawsuit because I think it has merit as far as minority head coaches and the opportunities that they have in the NFL. But Wilkes, I'm surprised he didn't get the head coaching job in Carolina. He shouldn't have even been available as a defensive coordinator. So, it's just reputation right now. The Falcons. Now, a couple of years after Dan Quinn is gone, Dan Quinn's defense kind of fell a couple of years, for the couple of years after the Super Bowl. You have not had a defensive presence on the field the last couple of years. It's not a spotlight job for a top defensive coordinator. It's a job that you can build your resume as a defensive coordinator, and I think that's what the Falcons got.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I don't mean to suggest that it's a bad hire. I don't think it's a bad hire. I just think there's, two aspects that I find interesting with the hire itself, and the fact that maybe they didn't get their top candidate, but they still got a candidate that I think can help the defense take the next step. Of course, part of taking that next step is getting a legitimate pass rusher at number 8 in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's builds your resume when you have Cameron Wake as one of your defensive ends, in New Orleans. So, yeah, you need it, but it demonstrates the fact of what an edge rusher can do for your defense too. Is the fact that New Orleans had a heck of a defensive line as far as personnel. Now he shaped it into a top unit, but that's what he can do here. But you got to get him the players too. He's not gonna work this magic all by himself.
Yeah.
So you still got to get him that defensive edge rusher, and I think the Falcons are prime position to get it at number 8. So, you might want to move up a little bit. We'll see how the draft starts falling. We'll see as far as we start analyzing the draft positions and players, where the Falcons ideally might want to be at. But it's got to be edge rusher. Got to be edge rusher this year. You just see so much of what an edge rusher can do for you. Nick Bosa, just crushing things in San Francisco. Hassan Reddick in Philadelphia. These guys show you what an edge rusher can do.
Yeah.
So he's not going to do it all by himself, but give him the personnel, give him an edge rusher to work with Grady Jarrett, and I think you might have something here.
Yeah, I think so. And you talk about, him not being able to do it by himself, the defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn wasn't, well, I guess he was a defensive coordinator. He was the head coach and defensive coordinator last season in Atlanta, or at least maybe season and a half, or second to last season. His last full season, he was defensive coordinator. You see him now being defensive coordinator in Dallas, and he has more pieces around him to work with. Yeah. And all of a sudden, he's a great coach again. So that point is great. That you can be a great coach, but you need the players as well to have success.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happened. All of a sudden, Dan Quinn is one of those names that was out there, but he took himself off the shelf quite early, saying he's going to go back to Dallas. I think Quinn has learned his lesson that being a coordinator can be fun. You don't have all that pressure that you have when you're the head coach. You could be more of a hero when you're defensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's true. He backed out of the Indianapolis Colts opportunity. I'm not sure if he was interviewing anywhere else. But I guess his reason was he wants to try and win a Super Bowl with Dallas, thinks they've got something special there. So he's going to stay Dallas Cowboys at least one more season. So you weren't surprised by Quinn saying, I don't want to coach, say, the Colts, and I'm going to stay in Dallas? Yep.
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
I think he's feeling good about the unit that he has, in Dallas. When you got Micah Parsons and, and just a great cast surrounding him. And why move? Why move right now? Except for the fact that the Falcons can't seem to get past the divisional round no matter what.
The Cowboys.
The Cowboys. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Cowboys can't get beyond the divisional round no matter what. It's a great place to be. I mean, you're at the top of your game right now. You're one of the best defenses in the NFL. So why leave that and put yourself on the firing line again.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense too. So, what was your reaction to Dallas losing that game? I know you were pretty, you were confident that this was going to be the year that the Cowboys finally made it back to the championship game, and they had their chances and fell short again.
I'm through having faith in the Dallas Cowboys. I thought this was the year. If they were going to do it any year, this was the year.
You are now where I was a week ago. I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe even. I have lost faith in Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so have I.
I like Dak Prescott a lot, and I hate saying that I don't think he can do it. But at this point, yeah, it seems like he's peaked or he's plateaued. Maybe is the better term. He's not continuing to progress and get better and make the next steps to winning a championship.
Right. You're looking for him, and he really has not performed in the playoffs yet. He hasn't given you that performance that you expect to see out of a rising quarterback.
He looked great against Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay had a losing record.
Everybody looks good against Tampa Bay this year, so I'm not as impressed by that because Tampa Bay, getting out of the AFC or NFC South was not, maybe it was an accomplishment. The fact that you were able to finally get past the Panthers. Panthers almost took that division over, but the Buccaneers were 17th on my power rankings this year. Not very impressive. And Dak getting past them, okay. But getting past a quality team that you really need to get past to call yourself a Super Bowl contender, he just couldn't do it. He could not come through. Yeah, it's a great defense he's facing, but you got some tools on offense that you have to work with, and you didn't come through. I'm through having faith in the Dallas Cowboys. I'm telling you, it just doesn't work. And I don't know what it is, if it's Jerry Jones being your owner trying to be the general manager or what it is. It doesn't work. Whatever they're doing is not working.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jerry Jones's interview after the game, I think, kind of summarized it perfectly. I forget exactly what his quote was, the biggest soundbite from that interview, but he just looked like and sounded like very defeated, very disappointed, and
he should have been. This has been one of the top teams in the NFL all season.
Yeah,
this is a team that should have performed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
they really did have a good, even though they were on the road, even though they were a wild card team, they did have a good chance to finally, make it farther than they had in a long time. And they weren't able to do that again. So big disappointment in Dallas. Let's circle back to Atlanta and kind of put a bow on the defensive coordinator thing. And then, let's hit on Carolina real quick too, them hiring Frank Reich. But let's get to a question from Gary first. He wants to talk about Arthur Smith's job security as head coach. What do you think it would take, for him to be on the? Do you think he'll be on the hot seat entering next year, Tom? And what would happen if he's not back next offseason, 2024? Do you think there's a possibility he's not back for 2024?
Oh, there's always the possibility. Now you could say that Smith really hasn't had the quarterback to go, to take this team farther than he has. You look at Marcus Mariota last year. Mariota was just, crashed and burned as the Falcons quarterback. So you do have that, the fact that he can say that I really haven't had the tools. I haven't had the defense. I haven't had the offense. I need some players. The Falcons did pretty well with what they had last year. It's just they didn't have much. And there's a lot of holes to be filled on this team. So it depends on how Arthur Blank looks at it. Does he say that, well, my head coach is supposed to be making my team better, making the pieces that are put under him work making this team move forward, or does Arthur Blank say, well, he hasn't really been given too much of a chance because, we had all our money last year tied up in dead cap. He really didn't have that opportunity. Let's see what he can do when we put a real team around him. So you can look at either way. I think Arthur Blank is going to be the main decision maker there. If he thinks his team is moving forward or if he sees this team stuck in the mud. It's going to be interesting to see. You can't really make that determination until we see free agency and see the draft and see what the Falcons do with all the dead cap money that they're getting back on the roster.
Yeah, and I think to go back to Gary's question, context is everything. If they have a rash of injuries in the preseason and the first couple weeks of the year where, they lose some stars on defense, they lose Grady Jarrett. I know they don't have the quarterback that, can propel them to a playoff berth right now. But if they landed somebody for quarterback, or if Desmond Ritter's the guy, but then Desmond Ridder goes down with an injury, that changes everything. So it's hard to know right at this moment to say definitively, oh, no playoffs, Arthur Smith's gone, or no winning season, Arthur Smith's gone. Because, if they win 7 games or 8 games next year with a bunch of, with an unhealthy team, that might be looked at as a great accomplishment. But we just don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't know how it's going to be looked at. It's once we see what the Falcons have going into next season, I think we'll have a better read on what the expectations for Arthur Smith by Terry Fontenot and Arthur Blank.
And the first head coaching job that was filled this off-season, this coaching cycle, is still the only one that has been filled. Frank Reich joining the Carolina Panthers. He threw the first touchdown pass in Panthers history against the Atlanta Falcons in week 1 of 1995, and he's now their new head coach. So kind of nice poetry there. But we mentioned Steve Wilks being a defensive coordinator candidate for the Falcons. Wilks went 6-6 with the Panthers after they were really quite a disaster under Matt Rule. They rallied around Wilks, and kind of like, the interim head coach last year with the Las Vegas Raiders, they rallied around, I can't pronounce his last name, but Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about. And the Raiders made the playoffs. Panthers made a run at the playoffs in the weak NFC South. So it was kind of surprising that they didn't stick with Wilks. And that's, I think, another topic we can hit on. But I do like the hire of Frank Reich for Carolina.
I think Reich is still a good coach. He had a terrible year with Indianapolis, but you could say that, again, he was with a very weak Indianapolis squad that didn't, the offensive line didn't hold up. Matt Ryan didn't play the way that they expected to get results out of Matt Ryan. He had no other quarterback behind Ryan. And I think it was a tough situation for Reich to try and keep that team. And I think where Reich kind of hurt him, got hurt, was everybody expected that team to be a playoff team. And it wasn't. But I don't think that was all his fault. Yeah. So I think he could do some good things in Carolina. I still think he's a fairly strong head coach. I'm just extremely disappointed that I think Steve Wilks proved himself and did not get consideration. I don't think was even considered for the head coaching job. And I just think that that's a travesty. It's terrible.
I think he was considered from the reports I read. I heard something that they even that whoever they didn't pick, whether it was Wilks or Reich, they wanted the other one to be a coordinator, and that was probably never going to work out, of course. No. But that Carolina was interested in Wilkes as a head coach, from what I saw.
I think Wilkes earned the opportunity. Definitely earned the opportunity. And the fact that I don't think he was seriously considered, let's put it that way.
Okay.
And which I think is terrible. Because he had that team moving. He had that team, was 100% behind him. It was not a great roster, but he got that team running, behind him, behind his philosophy, and made that team go. And, that's all you can ask out of a head coach. If you got great personnel, stitch that personnel and make a winner. If you don't have the personnel, get them all playing together and do the best you can. Well, he did that with Carolina, because Matt Rule just had nothing there. That team might have ended up with the first overall draft pick if Matt Rule had finished out the season. Wilkes turned that team around. Wilkes had that team believing, and he had that team believing that they were fairly good. So, that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of presence. And a head coach with presence, you can do a lot with. I think it's terrible he hasn't gotten the chance. I think it has something to do with the ability, again, of minority coaches, difficulty of them getting head coach jobs, because he should have been the head coach in Carolina.
I think it also speaks to how offensive oriented the league is too, because Reich is an offensive guy, didn't have a good season offensively with the Colts in 2022, but 2021, fairly good offense with Carson Wentz. 2020, good offense with Phillip Rivers. 2019, above average offense with Jacoby Brissett. So Reich has proven that, with a competent quarterback, he can make a team into a 500 or better club offensively. So, and Carolina has been starved for offensive play since Cam Newton won the MVP, it seems like. So
that's true.
So I think that played a big role in it too. You could say, though, they were playing fairly well offensively with Steve Wilkes as their head coach.
You won with him. You won games with the guy. You can't ask for anything else out of your head coach. He had the players believing, and he won games. What do you got to do to show that you are head coaching material? That's what it comes down to me. It's, you made a red hot Detroit Lions team look like a semi-pro club. Just ran over them. Basically kicked the Lions out of the playoffs by the way you played them. He won some impressive games. And I just don't see. It gets me that he didn't get the opportunity. It really does. I'm very disappointed in very disappointed in Panthers, because I think they're losing out on something good. And I think at some point, some team is going to find something good out of Steve Wilkes.
Two other points I want to make on Carolina hire. Frank Reich got caught up in this quarterback carousel in Indianapolis. And I am maybe not surprised that he jumped at a chance to be a head coach again right away, but he's landing in a spot that doesn't have an obvious quarterback. And he's in the same situation that he was in Indianapolis, at least to start. Now, Carolina does have a top 10 pick. It is a deeper quarterback class than last year. So I'm interested to see if Carolina is a player to trade up to, hey, maybe your Chicago Bears, to get that quarterback so Frank Reich isn't in this same situation he was in Indianapolis. I wonder if that was a conversation that they had before making the hire official. Hey, yeah, I want to be here. I have, you want me, but I need a quarterback. And this is what I expect us to try and do to get that quarterback. I wonder if that conversation happened.
I'm sure it did. because other than that, you end up going forward with PJ Walker or Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
That's just not a situation you want to walk into. So, yeah, I'm sure the conversation was had about what are we going to do with the quarterback spot if I come in here. I want somebody that I can work with, and somebody probably wants somebody he can work with for a while instead of getting these one-offs that he was getting in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Not get off the carousel and get a quarterback that's going to be a franchise quarterback, a guy that's going to be there for a while and have him build a relationship with from over multiple seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that conversation did take place, and I'm sure we're going to see that out of Carolina. At some point, they're going to either make a reach for a quarterback in free agency, or they're going to try and get up to a point where they can get one of the quarterbacks coming out of the draft. Because they're not, at this point, they're not really positioned to get one. They're going to have to trade up to get one.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think they're a trade candidate, though, to get up to make sure they get one of the quarterbacks in the class, and maybe they have a preference. So trade up and get the guy that you really want.
Right.
The other thing I want to just quickly comment on with the coaching carousel, the coaching, frenzy this offseason so far. I agree with you that it's a shame that Wilkes didn't get the opportunity in Carolina. I think they got a good candidate in Reich, but it is a shame that, and surprising that at 6-6, Wilkes didn't stay in Carolina and lose the interim tag. I, though, think it'll look even worse. I know these teams don't get together and, they're not always going to share the same logic, but just the optics of the, Brian Flores lawsuit and this conversation of minority candidates not getting seriously considered, or they're held to a different standard. That is going to, I think, blow up in the NFL's face if Jeff Saturday is named head coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, you got that right.
Because he went 1-7.
Right. And
that team just completely tanked. It was so clear that the players didn't want to play for him. And they blew a 33-0 lead, the biggest blown lead in NFL history. I mean, there isn't even one thing good that Jeff Saturday can put on his resume to say that he should get the opportunity to be the Colts head coach next year, other than, I guess, one win in his first game.
In the first game.
Other than that, I mean, there were really no positives to his resume. He's still in contention for the Colts job. They've moved on to their second round of interviews.
Yeah.
And all indications are Jim Irsay wants to hire him.
That's what I've been hearing, yes.
There are other people in the organization, I think Chris Ballard probably most notably, trying to convince him not to hire him, trying to convince him to hire somebody else. And I get it. Indianapolis and Carolina aren't working together to jive with their decisions of who should be their coach. One team can think the interim they had was better than the other. But just looking at the eye test, looking at the statistics of how those teams perform with those two interim coaches, the guy that most obviously should have gotten an opportunity didn't, and the guy that had no previous coaching experience looked terrible as interim head coach, and he might get the job. And of course, he's white and the other guy's black. It's not going to look good if that happens. It'll look will look very poorly on the NFL if that happens.
Yeah, it really is. The fact that Saturday had no previous coaching experience and came in and just completely tanked that team. It's just, it's amazing that he is still in contention. And I know that's Jim Irsay, but, Jim Irsay's made some interesting moves with that team. It looks bad. It would be a terrible look for the NFL. And I think actually at some point the NFL behind the scenes might come in and say, this is a really bad look. Let's get out of this particular scenario and see if we can't come up with a more serious head coaching candidate than Jeff Saturday. So,
I mean, Jeff Saturday in his introductory press conference, he came across pretty humble. He said, if after 8 games I stink at this job, I'll say adios. I'll be out. well, Jeff Saturday, you did stink at your
It
job.
did stink.
You did. You were
Right.
bad. So, you should say goodbye and move on. But he wants to be a head coach in the NFL. So he's not taking his hat out of the ring. I don't blame him to a certain extent, but the Colts need to really consider more experienced coaches for their head coach position.
Yes, they do.
And
boy, do they.
Yeah. Jay Black says, hello, what's up, guys? Good to see you here. Larry Orange says he's hopeful that Wilkes will get an interview somewhere else, maybe Denver. I don't think maybe they'll interview him, but again, Denver's looking for an offensive coach.
Yeah. Denver's looking for somebody who can get Wilson back.
Yeah.
Get him back on track. They're not looking for a defensive coach right now.
And that's unfortunately what a lot of minority candidates are up against at this point in the hiring processes. Historically, I hope a generation from now, there's more Black offensive coordinators, Black offensive coaches, but for across the board, for the most part, minority coaches coach defense.
Yeah.
And in the modern NFL, teams are looking for offensive head coaches, and that's hurt minority candidates, I think.
Yeah, it has
over the last few years.
Yeah, but yes, with Steve Wilkes, I think the main thing is Denver has got to get I don't think it's a good fit for him, and as highly as I think of Steve Wilkes and the job he did last year, it's not a good fit because they got to have somebody who they feel can get Russell Wilson back on track.
Yeah.
Wilson, they paid a lot of capital for Russell Wilson, and he just completely fell on his face with Nathaniel Hackett, and they're going to be looking for somebody with experience. I've heard Sean Payton connected to Denver. So, don't be surprised if that happens.
I wouldn't be either. I think that's the guy they've circled as their dream candidate. So their number one priority, fix Russell Wilson. Number two priority, fix Russell Wilson. Number three priority, fix Russell Wilson. Yeah. That has to be Denver's goal going into 2023.
Exactly.
Feisty Falcon fan says, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Great to see some first-time commenters. I don't think we've heard from Feisty Falcon fan or Jay Black before. So
we haven't. It's great to see. Great to see some new faces on the comment line.
Yeah, welcome to the show. If you've listened before, but first-time commenter, I think. Thanks so much for tuning in and commenting. We'd love to hear from you guys what you think about the Falcons hire at defensive coordinator. Would love to hear some more chatter about that. We are going to move on though to the championship matchups. Top of the show that I'm super excited for tomorrow. It's one of my favorite sports days of the year. Planning to get some great food, sit back, enjoy the NFC and AFC championship game. I think it might be a blessing that the AFC championship isn't in Atlanta, because I don't have to think about whether or not I want to go, and I can just sit back and watch it in my living room.
Yeah, I think that works out pretty well. So, but again, I've been reading in a few places the fact that the NFL sold 50,000 tickets up front for that game. Has them thinking about championship games at neutral sites again. So which we discussed last week and completely shot down that idea. Well, I know we completely shot down that idea. We're not going to have any influence on what the NFL thinks.
Sure. Right. Of course. They're not going to ask us. Steelers owner Art Rooney came out and he said he hates the idea too. So
Rooney has a lot of influence.
Yeah. I don't think it'll happen unless Rooney's trying to appeal to local Pittsburgh businesses, and then behind the scenes he's going to vote yes to neutral site championship games. I don't think he's going to do that, assuming it's put up to a vote. And Rooney said that he doesn't think there's enough votes for it to pass right now anyway. So
I don't think so.
It's an interesting discussion. I don't think it's going to become reality. And the NFL, I would say maybe fortunately, because I don't want it to happen. But the NFL, if you wanted it to happen, unfortunately, lost the opportunity for a beta test to see how it actually would work out. And maybe we can thank
Cincinnati just completely overwhelmed the Bills.
Yeah,
that was just a nasty beatdown that the Bills took last week. So
let's talk AFC Championship first. I know that's the nightcap on Championship Sunday, but I think we underestimated the Bengals all year long. And when I say we, I mean the media, not just us. But I don't think they were really considered as serious Super Bowl contenders in the AFC in the summer. It was all about Buffalo, a little bit about Kansas City, but people were concerned, how is that offense going to be without Tyreek Hill? But everybody was on the Buffalo Bills bandwagon. And maybe the loss from Buffalo on last week is a lesson for us in the media that, I mean, I guess we do it every year. We hype up these teams in the summer and the off season, and that's not going to change. But as great as Buffalo was on paper, they're a team that hasn't been to the Super Bowl yet. With this team, of course, this current roster and coaching staff. And they weren't even in the championship game last year. No. I know that they lost a heartbreaking game with Kansas City on the road, but they weren't super close to, a championship last year. And maybe we overhyped them going into the year because they just, is it over exaggerated to say they fell apart? That they just really fell flat on their face, at least last week. And even against Miami, they
didn't look good against Miami.
They didn't dominate like we thought they would.
No.
They didn't look great. And even in this, I would say even in December, they weren't that juggernaut team that everybody thought they were going to be.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. Cincinnati last year started slow, picked up, momentum going into the playoffs and rode that momentum to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Did the same thing this year. Started slow, and now they've rode that momentum in the championship game.
Yeah, my point about Cincinnati was going to be we didn't hype them at all in the summer, and then they started 0-2 against a Steeler team we didn't think was going to be very good, and Mitch Trubisky. And then Dallas, without Dak Prescott in week 2, we just completely wrote off the Bengals.
Yep.
And then in addition to liking the Chiefs and Bills, the Dolphins started 2-0 or 3-0.
Yeah.
And beat the Bills in week 3. The Ravens were 2-1, and their only loss was to Miami in the first 3 weeks of the season. We're talking about all these other teams in the AFC ignored the Bengals.
Yes.
And they just kept getting better on the offensive line, beat Kansas City. I think they would have beat Buffalo if that game is completed in week 17. So let's not ever overlook Joe Burrow and the Bengals again. I think that's the lesson that I learned last week.
I think that's the lesson everybody learned. Yes, exactly, Dave. Don't underestimate Joe Burrow. And, everybody's talking about Joe Burrow as one of the best quarterbacks in the AFC now, where he was kind of on the second tier of that conversation. Now, all of a sudden, this past week, all I've been hearing is, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, top 3 quarterbacks. All of a sudden, Burrow has crashed that conversation. So, it's funny how that happens.
It is funny because I think Burrow was already in that conversation, or should have been.
I think he should have been, but he wasn't.
Okay.
Because I think everybody was looking at.
He was in the conversation for me. If you were going to have the
conversation for you.
Yeah. But I guess nationally, you're right. People are finally catching up. I think before last week, I wouldn't have necessarily put the Bengals, the team, on the same level as Kansas City and Buffalo. But how can you argue with what they've done over the last 13 months? They've beaten Kansas City twice, and I think they're going to beat Kansas City again. And you know what? I don't think it's going to be because Patrick Mahomes is banged up either. I think even if Mahomes was healthy, Cincinnati has done enough for me to feel confident that they're going to win this game regardless of Mahomes' health.
Yeah, I think it's very possible. The way Cincinnati's playing right now, remember last week, I thought having 3 of their starting offensive linemen out was really going to hurt this team.
Yeah.
They played like a unit. I mean, they were solid. It was amazing how well they did. So I definitely underestimated how they would come into this game, but Joe Mixon had a hell of a game. They had a hell of a running attack against Buffalo, and just played well. They beat Buffalo offense, defense. It didn't matter. They came out and did a hell of a job. So, Buffalo has dominated this too. I want to look up one thing here for a second.
Sure. While you look that up, we can get to some comments. We've had a couple of new ones. Feisty Falcon fan says he likes the hire for DC for the Falcons. And he says, Chiefs going down. Haha. I'm from Iowa, so I want to see Burrow and Purdy in the Super Bowl.
Okay, Burrow and Purdy. My God.
OMT is a little bit behind listening to the beginning of the show, I think. And he says that welcome to 2004, when we should have lost faith in Dallas Cowboys back then, I guess.
Yeah, after Jimmy Johnson left. So,
wouldn't that have been 1994?
Yeah, I'm sorry. A little late, but still. With Jerry Jones on top of that team, it hasn't worked. And again, I'm just shocked because I really thought the Cowboys were going to be something this year. And I thought they were going to make a splash in the playoffs. Did not do it. But let me get back to where we were. The Bengals have won 7 of their last 8 games against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Which is one hell of a run.
Yeah.
And one of the things I also found funny that I really didn't realize before this week, Patrick Mahomes has played in, this will be his 14th postseason game this weekend. Except for the 2 Super Bowls, all of them have been in Kansas City.
Yeah.
They've all been in Arrowhead Stadium. He's never played a road conference playoff game.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing to me that can happen. Which also tells me don't sell the Chiefs short. That one, don't count them completely out yet. Although I do think I like Buffalo to win this game. I think
Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Cincinnati to win this game. So, but it's a tough, it's going to be a hell of, the last couple of games have been by 1 score. So it's not like either team has dominated this thing. They play each other tough. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup, but I think this is a game again. Cincinnati can win. They have the personnel. I like the offense, the way the offensive line came together, and they're strong on defense. So I think Cincinnati does. They're playing like they're playing like they've been overlooked all season. Let's put it that way.
Well, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder too about that neutral site decision.
Yes.
And when the NFL came out and had the we're gonna have the neutral site AFC Championship, everybody bought tickets, assuming that those were going to be the 2 teams in the AFC Championship. It really rubbed Cincinnati the wrong way, and it should have, because it was insulting what the NFL was willing to do for not only to say, well, this is the scenario that will happen if Buffalo and Kansas City are in it, assuming that those are the 2 teams that were going to be there. But they also, didn't really take into account that Cincinnati could have still gotten the home field.
Exactly.
And they had no opportunity for a neutral site game against Kansas City or Buffalo facing them in the playoffs. Again, I think Cincinnati was on their way. It was the first quarter, I know. There was a lot of game left. But based on how that game went last week in Buffalo, how can you say that Cincinnati wouldn't have won that game against Buffalo in Week 17? So, and the NFL insulted the Bengals. They insulted, and then on top of that, they had the coin toss thing, where if you don't win in we're going to give you the division title, but we're not going to give you a guarantee of a home playoff game.
Right.
It's the whole thing really rubs Cincinnati the wrong way, and I think that's part of what's propelling them right now. They're a good team anyway, and now they're playing with an edge.
Yeah, definitely. It's, but Zach Taylor loves that. He loves not being respected. I don't know how Cincinnati's going to survive next season when everybody's looking at them and saying, yeah, this should be a winning team. Zach Taylor likes people overlooking his team. So this plays into his hand. This is what he does. This is how he sets his team up for success is, okay, don't pay attention to us. You keep overlooking us. We'll still be there at the end, so it's interesting because, Taylor took that and really wrote it. They were completely, and they were ground into the dirt by the NFL. They really were not considered to be a serious candidate for any of those scenarios.
Yeah, I agree. And that's 7 out of 8, 7-1 record in the last 8 matchups against Kansas City really sticks out to me. And that's why I think Cincinnati will get it done again.
Yeah, I think they can. So, and I'm looking for it. I think Cincinnati with Mixon and with that receivers group, that is just a deadly receivers group. So, with Jamar Chase leading the way and then T. Higgins, and it's just incredible how they've put an offensive juggernaut around Burrow. And he's taken advantage of it. He uses it.
In the NFC, last week we talked about Brock Purdy being a third-string quarterback, a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant, and you doubted whether or not he could win a divisional playoff game. And if he wins this week, he'll make NFL history, being the first rookie quarterback to win a championship game. He's got the team to do it, but I am on board with you. I'm assuming this is going to be your take as well, because it was your take last week, that he doesn't have what it takes to win this game against Philadelphia on the road. He's done really well so far, but even Dallas was a good defense, and Dallas did a lot to slow down the 49ers and Brock Purdy last week. But I think on the road against the Eagles, pass rush is a whole nother challenge. One of the best pass rushes ever in NFL history. And I think they're going to give Purdy enough issues that the rookie's going to make some mistakes. And I see Philadelphia joining Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. That's those are my weekend.
That's kind of the way I look at it too. I think that's the way it happens. God, were the Eagles good last week?
Yeah.
That was just, and I know it was the Giants, but God, did they tear them apart. And their defense was flying around, Reddick, and I think everybody kind of forgot how good that team was with Jalen Hurts, Hurts back in at quarterback. And I don't think people give him as much credit as a passer as he should get with Devontae Smith and
A.J. Brown.
Brown and Green. I keep getting them confused. Yeah, but with A.J. Brown, both have gotten over 100 targets this year. Both have they both gone for over 1,000 yards? I want to check that out.
I think so.
Yes. Yeah. Brown went for 1,400, almost 1,500 yards. And Smith went for 1,200. They got a great running back with Miles Sanders. They got a guy that Hurts can look at as far as, I keep getting his name screwed up. Jalen Hurts. that Hurts can. They got a tight end he can rely on in Dallas Goedert,
Yeah.
and who made a great catch last week and got into the end zone. So I just think this Philadelphia team is loaded on both sides of the ball. And I think San Francisco is going to have problems establishing themselves. Purdy did not have a great game last week. Purdy did not lose the game for San Francisco last week.
Yeah, but he didn't look great.
Did not look great as far as in the win. The Eagles are not going to beat themselves. They don't give away the ball too much. As many times as Smith and Brown touch the ball, very rarely do they fumble it away. So it's a team that keeps control of the football. It's a team that is tough to force into mistakes. And as much as I like San Francisco's roster, I think it's going to be striking midnight for Brock Purdy.
That's a good way to put it. I agree. I just think the Eagles are going to be too much for him on the road. Again, that pass rush led the league in sacks. Most sacks by a team since the 80s, I believe, is the stat. It's been a long time since the NFL has seen a pass rush as dominant as the Eagles and as balanced. You can't just focus on one or two guys, even two guys to stop. They have pass rushers up and down the defensive line, the lineup, pass rushing specialists that are fresh, that come in on third down and third and long situations. So they are a handful. And I know the 49ers have a good offensive line, but with the rookie quarterback, will he know where that rush is coming from and where to go with the ball before it gets to him? I don't have confidence in Purdy that will happen.
And another thing the Eagles did, picked up Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph to tighten up their run defense. And they saw they had some problems in run defense and went out and addressed it. So that they're devastating as far as stopping the pass and stopping the run.
Yeah.
So it's going to be rough to see Brock Purdy trying to make something happen against that defense, against that pass rush. 70 sacks this year. So, and that's 15 more than the number 2 team, which is Kansas City, with 55 sacks.
Yeah.
So, that's just impressive. It's an incredible defense, and they have an offense that takes advantage of everything the defense gives them. And this Eagles team has been underestimated all year. It's almost like going to be a Super Bowl. I think a Super Bowl of underestimated teams, because I think nobody's taken the Eagles seriously for most of the season. And we just talked about the Bengals and how they've been looked at all season. Well, you're going to have the Eagles-Bengals, I think, in the Super Bowl.
That's my pick.
How I think it lines up.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. Feisty Falcon fan agrees with us that the Eagles will win the NFC Championship game. Wallace Smith is on the 49ers bandwagon. He thinks that Robbie Gould, it will be the difference, kicking a field goal at Lincoln Financial to send San Francisco to Arizona and Super Bowl 50. Are we up to 57? Super Bowl 57?
Yeah.
It's going to be
Amazing, isn't it?
Super Bowl 57.
Wow.
Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in your app store, and when you do, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So if you put 20 down to get started, you get 20 back by using our promo code ASU. And not only do you get free money, you support us. You support our show. We've had some first-time commenters today. So other than commenting and watching the show, the other great way to support our channel, our show, is to sign up for Prize Picks using that promo code ASU. So to end today's show, we're going to have some entries for you to use on Prize Picks for Championship Sunday. I have 3 from the NFC Championship, Tom, and then I've got 3 that I like for the AFC Championship. I'm not super confident in these because, again, I told you I was on a cold streak with prize picks. I even sat out making picks. But it's Championship Sunday, so I'm going to take a stab at it.
Right.
And for the NFC Championship, I'm going tight ends, tight end combo. George Kittle, Dallas Goedert combined for 94.5 receiving yards. I'm going over with that. I like Wallace Smith's pick, at least with Robbie Gould being a factor, because I've got Robbie Gould's 6.5 kicking points over all those field goals the 49ers kicked last week. I think they're going to be doing that again, and he'll kick 3 field goals in this one.
I think that's a great pick.
And A.J. Brown, I'm going more off of a hunch as opposed to actual statistics. But I don't think A.J. Brown was particularly happy that he wasn't really involved last week. I think we overblew in the media how upset he was. But I do think he wants, he's a competitor. He wants to help his team win. I think Jalen Hurts makes a conscious effort to try and get Brown more involved this week. So I'm going over 69.5 receiving yards for A.J. Brown.
That's nice. You got some good ones there, Dave. I really like what you put together.
Well, thank you. I know you've said that in the past, and I've been way wrong. So.
No, I really do like that. I like those picks. You like A.J. Brown. I think, let's see, where is he? Jamar Chase, 7 receptions. I think he's going to get those 7. I say go over. T. Higgins is only at 4.5 receptions, and I'm a little surprised by that. I think the Bengals are going to fill the air with footballs. I really do. That's what they do best, and I like that. Anytime TD, Christian McCaffrey. I think he hits the end zone at least once in this game. And I like that as far as it's called pass plus rush plus reception TDs on the site. Basically, it's an anytime touchdown. I like that as far as a pick. I think Christian McCaffrey does get into the end zone. Amazing how once Christian McCaffrey got away from Carolina, what happened to his game.
It's true.
How he came up.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and take a look. There's a lot of categories that you can put prop bets on and see. And again, great way to ramp up the excitement as far as the game as you start watching your players getting close to these totals. Unfortunately, I'm with you, Dave. A lot of mine don't quite get over those totals, but you got a lot of options, so go for it.
One I definitely want to point out, they have Joe Burrow at half a passing yard. So they're giving you Joe Burrow there for free.
Yes, they're giving you Joe Burrow free.
Definitely jump on that. He's one of my 3 picks for the AFC Championship game. And I guess I'm going to disagree with you a little because I like Joe Mixon. They ran Joe Mixon 20 times last week against Buffalo, maybe because of the weather. But I think they are going to have – I'm not saying they won't take their shots through the air, but I do think Cincinnati's going to have some balance, and Joe Mixon's going to be heavily involved in this game plan at Kansas City to try and slow down that second-best pass rush in the NFL. And Joe Mixon's at 56.5 rushing yards. I like him going over that. And I wanted to get Travis Kelce for receptions because Patrick Mahomes just throws at that guy every single third down.
Oh yeah, he's the target there. So,
well, I think Prize Picks is on to me because they don't have Travis Kelce listed as an option for receptions.
No, but they don't.
He is an option for receiving yards at 76.5. I would go over with that as well.
Yeah, I like that one. Right. Yeah. Prize Picks. I mean, you don't get to do these websites by being stupid. You gotta have an idea of what you're doing. So
they're giving you Joe Burrow for free. Definitely, he's not going to get injured during the coin toss. He'll have 1 passing yard in this game.
Right.
But they're not giving you Travis Kelce in receptions. They are listing him as an option in receiving yards. You're going to have to earn your other 2. and we've given you quite a few options
Yeah.
in the two games to help you win some money.
Absolutely. So good luck to everyone out there. And it's going to be a fantastic championship Sunday. I like this lineup. I think we're going to have a couple of outstanding games.
Yeah,
I really do.
I think so too. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Both contests should be close, and no matter what, we're going to have two worthy Super Bowl contenders. So it really will be a great day for the NFL. And thank you to everybody who commented and making us a part of your Saturday. This has been great.
Absolutely. We really appreciate having you with us, and have a great week, everyone.